He broke out of prison 4 times. No one believed it was possible. Not in Japan's most secure prisons, not under sub-zero Hokkaido winters, and certainly not while locked in specialized handcuffs made to hold forever. But Yoshie Shiratori did the impossible again and again. He wasn't a ninja, an assassin, or a genius inventor, just a desperate man who refused to die inside a cell. So who was he really? A criminal mastermind? Or a man driven to escape injustice itself? Yoshie Shiratori was born in 1907 in Aomori, Japan, a northern province known for its harsh winters and quiet fishing towns. He was abandoned by his mother, lost his father as a toddler, and grew up working wherever he could, first at a tofu shop, then as a fisherman near Russian waters. But the world offered him little mercy. A lifetime of struggle turned him toward gambling and petty theft, and by his late 20s, he'd landed behind bars on a murder charge he would later insist was unjust. Most prisoners dream of freedom. Yoshie planned for it. For months, he studied the guards' routines, watching how they checked his cell, when they looked and when they didn't. One night, in 1936, Yoshie used a single piece of metal wire taken from a wash bucket to pick his lock. He slipped through a cracked skylight, leaving behind floorboards covered with his futon to make it seem like he was still asleep. By morning, when the guards opened the door, they found nothing. But his freedom lasted only 3 days. They caught him stealing supplies from a hospital and sent him to a harsher prison in Akita. If Aomori was tough, Akita was hell. High ceilings, smooth copper walls, and a single skylight too high to reach. He had no tools, no allies, and no hope. But what no one realized was that Yoshie had noticed something: tiny cracks in the wooden frame around the skylight. Every night he would climb up, loosen it piece by piece, and wait. For months. Finally, on a stormy night in 1942, the wind masked every sound as he pulled himself through that skylight and vanished again. But this time, he didn't run for revenge. He went straight to the home of the only man who had ever treated him kindly, Guard Kobayashi. Imagine that, escaping prison just to look for compassion. But when Kobayashi hesitated and called the police, Yoshie's brief taste of freedom turned to betrayal. His punishment was transferred to the most feared place in Japan, Abashiri Prison in the northern tip of Hokkaido. A place built not just to hold men, but to break them. The guards left his cell open to the brutal cold. They beat him when he stood, starved him when he didn't, and then they locked him in custom iron handcuffs, so tight it took a craftsman 2 hours to remove them for bathing. But Yoshie was paying attention again. Every time food arrived, he dripped miso soup onto the cuffs, again and again. The salt slowly corroded the metal until it weakened. Then, on a dark summer night in 1944, Yoshie dislocated both his shoulders, slipped through the narrow food slot, and vanished into the blackout-covered night. For 2 years, he lived in the wilderness, surviving in abandoned mines and forgotten villages. When Japan finally surrendered at the end of World War II, Yoshie emerged into a changed nation, only to be caught again, this time for fatally stabbing a farmer who attacked him for stealing a tomato. Was it murder or desperation? The court didn't care. They sentenced him to death. At Sapporo Prison, guards were told to watch the ceiling. Yoshie was infamous for climbing out. They built a special cell with windows smaller than his head and ceilings too high to reach. But in their perfection, they forgot the floor. For months, Yoshie chipped away, spoon by spoon, bowl by bowl, digging through the ground beneath him using his miso soup dishes. In 1947, when the tunnel was long enough, he slipped through it and escaped, for the 4th time. Think about that.
Every prison Japan trusted to hold him became part of his legend. 1 year later, fate offered him something unexpected: kindness. A policeman, unaware of his identity, offered Yoshie a cigarette in a park. That simple act broke him. After years of being beaten, caged, and hunted, a small gesture of humanity made him confess. He turned himself in. But this time, justice saw him differently. The court ruled the farmer's death was self-defense and revoked the death sentence. For the first time, Yoshie's story wasn't just about escape, it was about being heard. He served the rest of his time in Tokyo's Fuchu prison, where guards treated him like a human being. He never tried to escape again. Yoshie was released in 1961 after 14 long years. He reunited with his daughter, though the bond had faded. His wife had died years earlier. He spent his final days working odd jobs, a quiet man who once terrified the entire prison system. When he died in 1979, he left behind no riches, no fame, just a legend carved into Japan's history. Today, there's a memorial to him in the Abashiri Prison Museum, a criminal, yes, but also a symbol of a spirit that refused to be crushed. 4 escapes, 1 man, unbreakable will. So, what do you think? Was Yoshie Shiratori a dangerous criminal who outsmarted the system, or a man who proved that even iron bars can't contain the human will to be free? Because sometimes the line between justice and survival is thin enough to slip through.